This video provides an overview of how to create a SketchUp model that will analyze successfully in Sefaira. There are 3 principles and 4 guidelines to keep in mind. The first principle is that Sefaira only needs a few specific types of elements to do analysis. These elements include the thermal envelope of your building, the floor plates, any elements on the outside of the envelope that are providing shading, and if you're doing daylight analysis, you also want to include any interior partitions or glazing that could block daylight. The second principle is that Sefaira only analyzes what's visible in your model. Any geometry that is hidden will not be analyzed. This means that you will want to hide anything that should not be a part of the analysis. Things like topography, any landscape elements, and any furniture on the inside, essentially anything that isn't the thermal envelope, shading, floor plates, or interior walls. I typically set up a Sefaira view in the model that only shows a simplified version of the envelope and the elements that are required for analysis. The third principle is that analysis time for energy generally increases with plane count. This is especially true of glazing planes. So as an example, the window above that is divided will be identical from an energy analysis standpoint as the simplified window below, except that a model that contains simplified windows will run much faster than one with divided windows. So you should focus on modeling the thermal envelope as simply as possible. And for very early stage analysis, creating a simple study model with thin walls is often the fastest way to get accurate results with very little time investment. Now let's look at the 4 guidelines. The first guideline is to check your total plane count. We talked about how too many planes can cause a model to run slowly, but too much complexity can also cause an analysis to fail. There are a number of factors involved when you talk about complexity. Plane count is only one of them, so there aren't hard limits. But some ballpark figures to keep in mind is a total model plane count of 30,000 or fewer, 5,000 or fewer glazing planes, and 500 or fewer shading planes. You can see the plane count of each type of plane in the entity palette. And if you're looking for the total plane count in the model, you can find that in the Model Info dialog under Statistics. The second guideline is to confirm that entities are interpreted correctly. Simply click Show Entity Types to see how Sefaira has automatically interpreted the entities in the model. If an entity is incorrect, you can simply right-click a plane or a group, go to Sefaira plugin, and tag it as the appropriate entity type. The final guideline is to model near the central axis, the 0, 0, 0 axis of the model. Buildings that are thousands of feet away from the central origin can sometimes be difficult for Sefaira to recognize. And while we're talking about the origin, you should also be aware that the green axis, by default, is facing north. If you ever need a reminder of these guidelines, simply click Modeling Guidelines in the Entity palette